Live on 5 News and streaming on 5 Plus, this is a Weather Impact Alert.
All right, from 5 News, I'm meteorologist Stephen Elmore. Today, obviously, that weather impact alert. We're about to cover a lot of information and go into some detail of what we're expecting later on this afternoon, at least as the starting point. But that timeline is going to last until late this evening, if not into the very early morning hours of our Tuesday. Let's give you a rough timeline of anywhere between 3 p.m. and let's say 1 a.m. going into our Tuesday morning. Now, that is a very large window for severe weather. And usually we try to have a tighter window of severe weather chances when we get to the day of the chance for that risk. But today's a little bit different. It's not going to be that direct line of thunderstorms that we get, and that leading edge is our only concern. And then by the time it's gone, we're done with it. It's going to be a very messy system that's going to be tracking across parts of eastern Oklahoma and then in northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. And it's going to be multiple rounds as well, starting late this afternoon. But we could see those rounds continuing until late this evening as well. Just in the past half hour or so, we've also got some big changes to when it comes to the risks as well. They're all being increased across northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. So let's talk about the impact of what we could see later on today. First thing first is going to be the chances for a few tornadoes. Now, the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center have highlighted that chance since yesterday and the days prior even. We've been talking about, hey, today's going to be the chances that we have a few tornadoes. The latest information that you need to know, though, is if we do get a few of those tornadoes, they could be long track, which means the chances of them being on the ground for a while, and they could be on the stronger side of things. We're talking about EF2 or larger. That's the wording that we're getting from the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center. Another thing that was highlighted, especially during the overnight hours, was the chances for some very large hail. Now, I know we got lots of hail this weekend. Some of it was up to the size of golf balls, but a lot of the hail that, let's say, that fell in Taneytown was about pea-sized hail. It was just a lot of it. It looked like snow came down across the ground. The hail that we're going to see today, at least the chances for the hail that we could see today, more than likely could be on the larger size and diameter. We're talking about potentially seeing those hailstones anywhere between baseball up to softball size hail at worst. The hope is that those hail cores would be much smaller than that. But if that doesn't end up being the case and we're dealing with those baseball to softball size hailstones, that's where we can see not only significant damage to property, but also obviously a great concern for life as well. So that's, again, something that's being relayed to us. That's what the models are suggesting to us, as well as the chances for, hey, if we do get some hail, it could be significantly large in diameter, up to the sizes of baseballs. What's been increased even since then, let's say over the last 15 minutes or so, is another update, and that's the chances for some very strong damaging winds as well, wind gusts capable of around 70 miles per hour. So I know I just said a lot of scary information and that this could be one of those days that we remember, right? Well, it definitely, all the ingredients seem to be right there, ready to go for the chances for some very severe weather this afternoon into the evening hours. And we definitely could see that. But now we're entering into the time where we have to follow this step by step and see those thunderstorms develop. What are the signs that we're seeing? What atmosphere are they moving into as well? I will tell you what, we've seen some sunshine break out today. It's going to get muggy this afternoon. We're talking about dew point values into the 60s and 70s. So again, it's going to be primed and ready to go. But do those storms initiate? Do they start to fire up? Where do they fire up at? Those are all the questions that are now casting by the time we get later on this afternoon to the evening hours. What we're talking about in this impact zone right here is all the potential that we have for today. Nothing's guaranteed, but as we'll show you here in just a few minutes, definitely the potential is there. So what I want you to do right now, sitting just after 9 a.m., we got sunshine out there, a few places dealing with some cloud coverage, especially across the River Valley this morning. But while we got some time before these storms start to move our direction later on this afternoon to the evening hours, is go ahead and download 5 Plus on your smart TVs. Go ahead and make sure you have the 5 News notifications turned on your cell phones. Those no weather radios, make sure they get them charged up, have fresh batteries, whatever it may be. And make sure by the time we get to this afternoon and into the evening, you have a way to get near a cell phone for alerts. You have a way to get near a TV to watch in case we need to break into the coverage, or live stream. We'll be on those live streaming platforms on 5 Plus, on YouTube, on Facebook, whatever it may be. As soon as we get severe thunderstorm warnings, in the case there's a tornado warning, then we would go on Channel 5. Or if the severe weather that we're currently seeing, say, let's talk about large damaging hail or significant wind threat, is high enough, then we would jump on Channel 5 as well. So again, we're going to be with you all day long, with you right now for the morning hours to give you this heads up. Again, the timeline for this is right around, let's say, 3 to 1 a.m. into Tuesday morning. And we could be dealing with some strong to severe thunderstorms throughout that process. Let's talk about those details now that we're on our live streaming platforms, have a little bit more time to dive into the details of these storms. And a few changes have happened even in the past 30 minutes or so with the latest models that we're having as well. This is matching up with the wording that we're getting from the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center as well, as that some main concerns for today would be the chances for discrete supercells. You're sitting at home, what does that mean? Well, you kind of get the idea of discrete supercells. What they're trying to highlight is that by the time we get to the afternoon and to the evening, is there a few cells that end up being all by them lonesome? They're traveling without any interference. Nothing's fighting with them. Nothing's taking energy away from them. If we get those discrete supercells, that is where we could see the bulk of that severe weather. That almost seems to be the case for, let's say, round one in the late afternoon, early evening hours. Then once we get into the later evening hours, let's say past that drive home from work, 6, 7 o'clock, whatever it may be, and we'll take a look at the latest model run here to give you that exact timeline. That's where we could see a more put together line of thunderstorms that could produce the damaging wind threat, that could produce still some tornado threat, that can still produce the chances for some large hail. Where you would find the largest hailstones, though, would be with those discrete supercells. Where you would find the highest tornado threat would be with those cells all by themselves. You know, when we get a line of thunderstorms, usually the main concern is those straight line damaging winds. And that could definitely be the case for today. When you have discrete supercells, they're all out there by themselves, and they have a tendency to spin a little bit easier than in a line of thunderstorms where you're looking for the kinks within the line of thunderstorms for signs of rotation. So let's look at futurecast. Again, this takes us out until 10:30 this morning. Cloud coverage starts to build in. Temperature's going to be around those upper 70s and low 80s. By then, though, I do imagine it is going to be muggy outside. Dew point values will probably already be into those mid to upper 60s. By the time we get to this afternoon, we could see some dew point values, the humidity outside, the mugginess outside. We could see that climbing up into those low to mid 70s. What does that mean for you? Well, it's what you feel outside. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like we could have some storms, and that's definitely what that's highlighting later on today. Cloud coverage builds in, though. Let's take a look into the afternoon. Here's a look at 3:30, and this is what the latest model trends are showing us as those discrete supercells. You start to see some of these cells all by them lonesome. Is there enough instability? There more than likely will be, for the chances to not only for these to spin, but to produce some hail as well. That's what the latest models are showing us, that we could start off with a few of these cells all by themselves, which could be an issue. This is at 3:30. Again, this model is giving us a best idea of what we can expect. It's not guaranteed that it'll look like this. I'll tell you what, this looks much different than what it did just a few hours ago. But it is our shortest term model that we have that's giving us the best up-to-date look of what those models are thinking are going to happen. But you can see that this current model, the newest one, is showing the highlighted chances of those discrete supercells, which again would lead to a higher chance for a few spin-up tornadoes, for the chances of some large hail as well. Of course, both those risks elevated for today. It's a messy system. We get closer towards 5 p.m. now, and you still see the chances of some cells all by themselves out here. Before we get to late this evening, and here's a look at 8 p.m., and this is where we start to build the concern for some straight line wind threat, wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour within that line of thunderstorms, having to deal with the chances of watching out for some signs of rotation, having to watch out for the chances for some very large hail. Again, we don't use that wording very often of near baseball size hailstones, but that's definitely what we could see today as a potential. Now again, it's not guaranteed, but the ingredients are there to support us to believe that we could see some very large hail as one of the main concerns for today. Here's a look at 8 p.m. Again, you start to see some of these brighter colors here, at least going to be some very loud thunderstorms, more than likely going to be crossing over the severe limits though, and that's going to take us to late this evening. Here's a look at 9:30, still dealing with that leading edge where we see those thunderstorms, where we see those severe thunderstorm potential at its greatest, and that's going to continue until late this evening. Here's a look at 11:30. Still dealing with some of those thunderstorms, but at least the leading edge of this has pushed off towards the east, and then we would just be dealing with some heavy rainfall on the backside of those thunderstorms. That continues until very early in the morning. We may not be able to give you the all clear until the first few hours of our Tuesday, and then from there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday actually doesn't look too bad outside. Here's the newest information for you, is that level 4 out of 5, moderate risk now across all of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. If you were joining us last night for one of these updates where we dig into the data, we only had that level 3 risk. This morning, we got that level 4 risk added across all of eastern Oklahoma, parts of Northwest Arkansas, and parts of the River Valley. Since then, just in the past hour or so, now all of us are included in that level 4 out of 5 risk for severe weather. What do those details mean to you though? You see the shading in red. What does it mean? Again, we talk about the tornado threat, and there's a lot going on the screen. So let's break it down. Let's talk about the color there in the background first, the yellows and the reds and those shadings that you see there. Really, all we need to worry about now is the red, and that's a 15% chance that we see those tornadoes start to develop. It is a higher end risk, even though it sounds like it's low with only 15% chance. You say, Stephen, that's not too bad, right? Well, consider a normal day is 0%, obviously. A marginally severe day, that level 1 or level 2 risk that we have pretty frequently throughout the spring is about a 2 to 5% chance of maybe seeing some tornadoes here and there. Now we're moving into the elevated categories of a 10% chance for parts of further east you live, into parts of Carroll, parts of Johnson, parts of Logan, parts of Scott. But a vast majority of the 5 News viewing area is now included in that 15% chance of seeing some of those tornadoes. What the black lines are highlighting here, that you see shaded here, is a different story. It doesn't mean that the tornado threat is going to be greater or less. What it means is that if we do get those tornadoes, which the 15% outlook would suggest that we will see a couple, that if we do get those tornadoes, they could be on the larger side of things, talking about EF2 or greater, and they could also be long track, which means the chances of them being on the ground for a long time. Again, the black lines do not indicate whether that chance is going to be greater or far less. It just indicates that if we do get those tornadoes, they could be on the larger side of things. They could be on the ground for a while. So it's called the hatched zone. You're going to see that hatched zone in the other 2 risks that we have to talk about as well. We talk about those other risks, of course, not considering these any less than the tornado risk. We just start off with the tornado risk. Here's a look at the other 2 risks for today. This is what's also been increased over the past half hour or so. That hail risk has significantly increased over the past 12 hours or so, since basically yesterday evening shows. Now we have that high risk shaded there in pink for almost everybody in the 5 News viewing area. And then you see that hatched zone again. So what does that mean for the hail risk? Well, it means that we could not only see some hail, but we could see some very large hail, maybe anywhere between 2 up to 3 inches in diameter. That's that baseball to softball size hailstones. Again, it doesn't mean that the threat is going to be any greater or any less. If we do get some hail, it does mean that the threat would be higher for larger hailstones. What's also been increased over the past 15 minutes or so is the wind threat. Now we're included, majority of us, in the hatch zone as well. And what that means is to get a severe thunderstorm warning, we typically need wind gusts right around 60 miles per hour. This is highlighting the chance that we could see destructive winds right around 70 miles per hour or greater. And of course, we have that high risk as well. There are some fail points for today's forecast. What I mean by that is that you hear us use the word, or you see it on social media, of today's forecast was a bust. It didn't pan out the way we're talking about it. There are some fail switches in today's forecast for us that would save us from the chances of having a widespread severe weather outbreak. Some of that being, if we can get maybe a few scattered showers, few isolated thunderstorms ahead of the main event, the main timeline for severe weather. If that starts to happen, maybe we start to eat up some of that energy and maybe it's not as destructive as we're thinking. I'll tell you what, outside of those discrete supercells that we were seeing there at 3:30, it doesn't look like we're going to see much rain in the way of those isolated thunderstorms or even some scattered showers before we get to the early afternoon. So that kind of rules that out, even though we'll be hoping for and looking out for the chances for a few of those scattered showers. But what also could be one of those fail switches is if these thunderstorms start to outproduce themselves. Sometimes we see this phenomena where these thunderstorms are blowing up so fast and they're producing this severe weather very quickly, but then they run out of steam or move into an environment that's already been worked over, or they don't break through the cap, whatever it may be. Is there too much activity to where they outperform themselves and then they end up don't producing the severe weather that's expected? Well, I'll tell you what, those discrete supercells, again, have the better chance of not only producing the tornado threat, but also the large hail threat as well. And then there could be a bit of a lull in the activity for the atmosphere to recover and produce some severe weather in the late evening hours. So again, we'll be watching out for those fail switches today. Never can we say that it's an absolute 100% guarantee that we are going to see several long track tornadoes, several reports of baseball-sized hail and wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. The ingredients are leading us to believe that this is what the max forecast could be for us today. So again, those are the changes that we've had over the past couple hours or so, really. So we've made an update to this list as well for the threats today. And that high risk is now going to be the concern for baseball-size hail, the chances for 70-mile-an-hour winds. That's the high risk that the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted for us, not only with the hatch zone, but also with putting us in the high risk of things. The tornado risk is also elevated for today. We have that level 4 out of 5 risk. We are in the hatch zone. There's a bunch of ingredients meeting up together that are going to produce the best atmosphere, the best ripe opportunity to produce potentially some long track tornadoes. What I mean by that is we've got this warm front lifting. And it's already lifting. And so right now we're getting into the warm sector of things. What that means is that it's going to be warm, it's going to be muggy out there before these thunderstorms arrive. And how those thunderstorms are going to arrive, how they're going to initiate, is going to be what's called on the dry line and the cold front as well. That's what's going to initiate those thunderstorms across central Oklahoma and eventually carry them into eastern Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, and the river valley. So where those thunderstorms initiate is going to be directly associated to what the threat for us is going to be. They're expected to initiate over central Oklahoma, and the expectation is that they would be mature by the time they reach over eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas. That's why we have that high risk for today when it comes to the hail, when it comes to the wind, and when it comes to those tornado risks as well, because those thunderstorms might already be mature by the time they reach us. We talk about the dew point, the humidity for the weather geeks out there. This is what that means. This is not the temperature outside. This is the humidity outside, the dew point values. And at least my best reference that I give during the summertime, and I know we're going to get there eventually, but not there just yet. The dew points, whenever we climb up above 70, I like to call it tropical outside. It's muggy. This is the type of day where when you talk about thunderstorms and you step outside and you kind of look around and you can feel it. You can feel the thickness in the air, the mugginess in the air. That's what these dew point values are highlighting, that there is going to be a lot of energy built up so that when these thunderstorms arrive, they have plenty of energy to feed off of as well. What you see the change there is by the time we get to 7 o'clock is those thunderstorms. That's why you see the drop in the dew points. It's because they're taking up all that energy. So by the time those thunderstorms arrive, we could be talking about those tropical levels right around those low to mid 70s. Of course, that would be more energy and more fuel available. So here's a look at the storm fuel, what we have as a potential, and you see a lot of bright colors here. And it's near that high-end chance of fuel available. Now, what you see here is the chances of those discrete supercells taking up some of that energy and producing some of those strong to severe thunderstorms, possibly. But then what you also see is that by the time we get to this evening, where those thunderstorms are going to be firing up across eastern Oklahoma, there are still plenty of storm fuel available for those storms to tap into and use the rest of this evening. Painting a really good picture now at 8 o'clock. You see behind that front, it's fine out there, right? It's using up all that fuel, but there's still plenty of fuel out there even late this evening, anywhere between that moderate and high risk for those storms to feed off of. It's not until we get late tonight, if not too early on Tuesday morning, that we can give you the all clear. Of course, on top of all of this, what we're considering our lowest threat, but still not zero, is the chances for some flooding. We have that flood watch out until Tuesday morning. With these thunderstorms, we can also see some very heavy rainfall. It might not be a lagging system where it's moderate rainfall over a long amount of time. Rather, could be some heavy rainfall over a short amount of time that leads to some flooding. And that flood watch continues for every county shaded there in green until our Tuesday morning. So here's a look at your 7-day forecast as we wrap things up here. Weather impact alert for us today, early into Tuesday. Most of your Tuesday, though, is really not too bad. 70s over the next several days, calm through our Thursday before more thunderstorm chances return by the time we get to this upcoming weekend. And then we'll worry about those storm threats once we get there. Across the river valley, again, weather impact alert for us today. Best timeline is going to be between 3 and 1 a.m. Tuesday morning. And then we get a couple days of a break for us before more thunderstorm chances return by the time we get to the weekend. So let's recap everything just real quickly before we wrap things up here. And of course, we'll be with you at 5 News at noon. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert will be with you all evening long. So weather impact alert for us today, timeline between 3 and 1. All threats are going to be available in the way of some potentially large tornadoes in the way of EF2 or greater. Could be long track as well. The large hail risk definitely there for today, and the high wind risk definitely there today. All the ingredients add up to believe that we could see one of those very impactful days with multiple different modes of severe weather. Of course, have a way to get those warnings. Here's one last look at futurecast here. Again, throughout the morning hours, not too bad. Cloudy out there right now. Taking a look at a few of those cameras across the area. Got some layers of cloud coverage. That's some good news for us. I'd be a little bit more concerned if we had some sunshine out there right now. This cloud coverage actually serving in our favor. That's some good news for us. It might not help us as much as we need it, though. Futurecast shows us that cloud coverage is going to hopefully stick around throughout the afternoon, maybe a few spotty showers, but by the time we get closer towards that 3-4 o'clock hour, these discrete supercells could be with us, and that has the best ability to spin and produce some of that larger hail. Really, the main line of thunderstorms expected later on this evening. Here's a look at 8 o'clock crossing over eastern Oklahoma into northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. That's where you could also find additional thunderstorms producing damaging winds. Large hail, if not a few tornadoes as well. Futurecast shows us that most of that system would be clearing out of here by the time we get out closer towards 11 o'clock, if not closer towards midnight, but still dealing with the heavy rainfall threat at least until the early morning hours of our Tuesday. Of course, the threat for today at level 4 out of 5, one shy of the highest risk available. And what that means specifically for you, the tornado risk is up to that 15% category. Again, that is elevated, higher than what the usual marginal risk for severe weather is going to be. Those black lines mean that if we do get a tornado, they could be on the larger end of things, and they could be on the ground for quite a while. Of course, the other hazards today look like this. The chances for some damaging hail, not just your typical hail, but we could see those hailstones grow into the size of baseball, if not close to softball size hail. That's what those black lines mean as well. Of course, the wind threat, that's been increased over the past hour or so to include the damaging wind threat as well. So here's a look at those threats for today. You obviously know them by now. Of course, this video will last on our social media platforms for you to go back and watch as well if you want to start this over and get a recap of things. We're joining you live right now. The hail threat, the wind threat, the tornado threat, all there today, but there are fail switches if we get this cloud coverage, if we don't break through with that energy, or if we get some of those discrete cells earlier on, may take away some of the energy so that the second round, the late evening storms, don't have enough to tap into. Those are our fail switches for today. If those don't work, though, the chances for some large hail, the chances for some strong damaging winds, the chances for a few tornadoes could be possible, again, between 3 p.m. and 1 a.m. Tuesday morning. We're going to be here the rest of the day today. Of course, keep you updated on all of our social media platforms, but also if we are in the case of severe weather, we'll hop on not only our live streaming platforms, but if needed, jump on Channel 5 as well. From 5 News, I'm meteorologist Stephen Elmore. Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert's going to be with you the rest of the evening as well, and we'll make sure to be here just in case we have that severe weather.